How much of your exhaustion comes from trying to correct a version of you that exists only in someone else's mind? You leave the conversation, but the conversation does not leave you. You replay every sentence. You rewrite the message 5 times. You add details nobody requested. You return to an argument that was already finished because you believe one more explanation will finally make them see your heart, understand your intention, and approve your decision. But every additional defense carries a hidden cost. It consumes your focus. It disturbs your sleep. It takes energy assigned to your growth and spends it managing another person's perception. There comes a moment when you must decide. Will you govern your response, or will you spend your life trying to govern conclusions you cannot control? Communication can present the truth, but it cannot create receptivity. You can speak clearly and still be misinterpreted. You can act sincerely and still be questioned. You can provide context and still meet a mind that has already chosen its conclusion. Your words belong to your responsibility. Their interpretation belongs to theirs. This is where many people surrender their peace. They believe peace will come when everybody understands them. So they keep explaining, keep defending, keep negotiating. But approval is unstable, and perception is incomplete. If your peace requires universal agreement, then every opinion becomes your master. Being misunderstood is uncomfortable, but being controlled by the fear of misunderstanding is captivity. Now, understand this carefully. Disciplined peace is not passivity. It is not hiding the truth. It is not refusing accountability. When correction is necessary, correct. When an apology is required, apologize. When your decisions affect others, communicate with integrity. But once truth has been offered responsibly, do not turn explanation into emotional begging. You were not created to live inside the changing opinions of other people. Your identity cannot be rebuilt every time someone misreads you. Your purpose cannot pause every time someone questions you. Your inner life cannot remain on trial before every voice demanding a defense. My friend, the misunderstanding is not always the heaviest burden. The heaviest burden is believing you must remove it before you are allowed to be at peace. Release that demand. Govern your spirit. Speak truth without trying to command the verdict. But to release this burden completely, you must first recognize what overexplaining is actually trying to accomplish. Overexplaining often presents itself as responsibility. It says, I am only trying to be clear, but clarity and control are not the same thing. Healthy explanation delivers relevant truth. It answers the honest question, provides necessary context, and allows the listener to decide what to do with what has been said. Overexplaining begins when truth has already been delivered, but you continue speaking because you have not received the reaction you wanted. Someone doubts you, and discomfort rises. You add another detail. They remain unconvinced, so you offer another example. They question your motive, so you begin defending your character. Before long, you are no longer explaining a decision. You are presenting your identity for approval. That is the hidden bargain. If I arrange the perfect words, perhaps I can make you agree with me. If I answer every objection, perhaps I can make you trust me. If I explain long enough, perhaps your approval will remove my discomfort. But words do not possess that power. Words can reveal your reasoning, but they cannot manufacture goodwill. Words can correct information, but they cannot force humility. Words can open a door to understanding, but they cannot make another person walk through it. When a heart is closed, more language does not always create more light. Sometimes it simply creates more material for resistance. Clarification offers information. Control demands agreement. Responsibility states the truth. Insecurity keeps negotiating after truth has been stated. Conviction communicates and remains steady. Approval-seeking communicates, watches the face of the listener, and changes its position until acceptance appears. Do you see the danger? What looks like careful communication may actually be surrendered authority. You hand another person the power to decide when your explanation is sufficient, when your motive is acceptable, and when you are finally permitted to move forward. My friend, you cannot call that freedom. Your responsibility is to be truthful, not to be irresistible. Your responsibility is to be clear, not to be universally convincing. Your responsibility is to act with integrity, not to force every observer into agreement. Self-government begins when you stop treating another person's conclusion as your assignment. State what is true. Correct what is false. Own what belongs to you. Then release the verdict you were never given the power to control. But do not misunderstand this freedom. Ending endless defense does not mean refusing every difficult conversation. Silence can be wise, but silence can also become avoidance. Therefore, wisdom must teach you the difference between necessary speech and approval-seeking speech. Wisdom does not make you mute. Wisdom makes your speech purposeful. There are moments when explanation is necessary. If a false statement could cause real harm, correct it. If you made a commitment, honor it with honest communication. If your actions injured someone, acknowledge the injury and make repair. If your decision directly affects another person, provide the context they are entitled to receive. If your role carries legitimate accountability, answer with integrity. Peace is not an excuse to become careless. But before you speak, ask 4 questions. Is this person genuinely affected by the matter? Is the question sincere? Is there new information that must be communicated? Can this conversation produce a constructive next step? Those questions reveal the difference between dialogue and trial. A sincere listener asks to understand. A controlling listener asks the same question after every answer. A sincere listener considers what you say. A hostile listener moves the standard each time you meet it. A sincere conversation advances toward clarity, responsibility, or resolution. A futile defense circles back to the same accusation because resolution was never the goal. Pay attention to the pattern. If each answer creates a new charge, you are not being invited into understanding. You are being recruited into endless defense. So establish a stopping point. Speak the truth plainly. Accept responsibility where it belongs. Correct what can be corrected. Apologize without excuses when you are wrong. Then refuse to keep proving what has already been explained. This is not arrogance. Arrogance refuses accountability. This is not deception. Deception hides necessary truth. This is not punishment. Punishment uses silence to wound. This is not fear. Fear remains silent because it cannot face the issue. Disciplined restraint is different. It has faced the issue. It has spoken honestly. It simply refuses to turn one answer into a lifetime of testimony before a court with no intention of closing the case. Not every silence is disrespect. Sometimes silence means I will not repeat myself merely because you reject my answer. Sometimes silence means I will not let accusation dictate the use of my energy. Sometimes silence means this conversation has reached the limit of what words can accomplish. My friend, speak when truth can serve responsibility. Speak when clarity can protect what matters. Speak when humility requires confession and love requires explanation. But stop when speech is being demanded as tribute to someone else's control. You are permitted to communicate without surrendering. You are permitted to answer without entering bondage. You are permitted to end a conversation that has ceased to pursue truth. And once the obligation to defend yourself forever has been removed, a deeper question comes into view. Why does another person's wrong opinion feel so dangerous in the first place? Misunderstanding feels dangerous when you have confused your reputation with your identity. Reputation is the picture of you carried in another person's mind. Identity is the life you are responsible for living. Reputation can change after one conversation, one rumor, one disappointment. Identity is formed through character, conviction, responsibility, and purpose. But when you confuse the two, disagreement feels like erasure. Criticism feels like a sentence. A wrong opinion feels like someone has taken your value away. So you rush to repair their perception because you believe you are repairing yourself. This is how approval becomes an emotional ruler. When people applaud, you feel valuable. When they criticize, you feel defective. When they understand, you feel secure. When they misread you, you feel compelled to prove that you deserve respect. The result is instability. One person celebrates your decision, another condemns it. One audience calls you courageous, another calls you selfish. One person wants you to speak, another demands that you remain quiet. If your identity depends on their reactions, you will keep changing shape for every room and still never become acceptable to everyone. Approval is a moving destination. The closer you chase it, the farther you travel from yourself. Perception is limited. People see moments, not the whole journey. They interpret actions through their own experiences expectations, wounds, and desires. Their view may contain truth you need to hear, or it may contain assumptions that do not belong to you. Either way, perception is not identity. Your identity is revealed in what you consistently choose. It is found in the responsibilities you honor, the convictions you refuse to sell, the corrections you humbly receive, and the purpose you continue to steward. What God has entrusted to you must be established within before it is recognized without. If human agreement becomes the foundation of your purpose, human disagreement will always possess the power to shake it. Purpose cannot wait for every observer to understand what they were never assigned to carry. So ask yourself honestly, am I correcting a falsehood that could produce real harm, or am I trying to escape the pain of being disliked? Am I serving truth or protecting an image? Am I taking responsibility or begging someone to restore my sense of worth? My friend, your value does not rise with applause, and it does not collapse under accusation. Stop outsourcing your identity to people whose perceptions can change tomorrow. Let conviction govern you. Let humility correct you. Let purpose direct you. Let character establish you. When worth is rooted within, misunderstanding loses its authority. You may still feel the discomfort, but you no longer bow to it. Peace grows when identity is governed by alignment rather than applause, by truth rather than reputation, by purpose rather than public reaction. But a stable identity must become a disciplined response. Conviction without emotional command can still be provoked into needless defense. The next freedom, therefore, is learning how to govern the moment between what happens to you and what you choose to do. Your first feeling is not your final instruction. Emotional discipline does not mean pretending you are not angry, hurt, embarrassed, or frustrated. It does not require you to bury what you feel and wear a false smile. Denied emotion does not disappear. It simply waits for another moment to speak. Discipline recognizes the feeling without giving it authority. Reaction is immediate. It is triggered by the accusation, the tone, the message, the look. It answers before wisdom has examined the cost. Response is different. Response is intentional. It allows principle to decide what impulse is demanding to control. Between provocation and action, there is a pause, and in that pause, your power returns. When you feel the urgency to defend yourself, do not obey it immediately. Notice what is happening in your body, the tightening, the heat, the racing thoughts, the pressure to speak now. Name the emotion honestly. I feel accused. I feel rejected. I feel afraid of being misjudged. Then identify the outcome you are trying to control. Are you trying to communicate truth, or are you trying to force agreement? Are you protecting something consequential, or are you trying to stop the discomfort of disapproval? Do not speak until your intention becomes clearer than your emotion. Ask 3 questions. Does this require an answer? Does this require an answer from me? Does this require an answer now? Not every statement requires correction. Not every conflict belongs to you. Not every urgent feeling represents an urgent responsibility. The pause protects you from words that outlive the emotion that produced them. It protects you from assuming motives you have not confirmed. It protects you from turning one painful moment into a broken relationship, a damaged reputation, or a night spent continuing the argument in your imagination. Many conversations end in the room but continue in the mind. You compose speeches no one will hear. You defeat accusations no one is currently making. You surrender hours to a conflict that has already stopped. That is reaction without an audience, disturbance without a present threat. My friend, reclaim the pause. The other person may provide the stimulus, but they do not have to determine your conduct. Their accusation does not command your tongue. Their misunderstanding does not control your timing. Their emotion does not have to become your atmosphere. Restraint is not weakness. It is self-command. The strongest person in the conversation is not always the one who speaks first or longest. It is the one who can feel deeply and still choose wisely. Feel without surrendering. Observe without absorbing. Pause without avoiding. Respond without becoming reactive. That pause interrupts compulsive defense before it consumes your energy or damages what matters. But the pause does more than calm you. It helps you see. And clarity must recognize when the listener lacks not information, but intention. Not every question is seeking an answer. 2 people can ask, why did you do that? and mean entirely different things. One may be requesting clarity. Another may be testing whether your boundary can be moved. One may want accountability. Another may want ammunition. One may be opening a conversation. Another may be demanding authority over a decision that was never theirs to control. Wisdom listens beneath the words. Do not judge an interaction by one polite sentence. Judge it by its pattern. Does the person receive an answer or immediately replace the question? Do they acknowledge facts or ignore every fact that weakens their accusation? Do they respect a reasonable limit or punish you for having one? Does the conversation move toward resolution or does it repeatedly return to confusion? An open listener adjusts when truth is offered. A committed misreader adjusts the accusation so the defense can never finish. You explain the event and suddenly your motive is questioned. You explain your motive and suddenly your tone becomes the issue. You address your tone and suddenly your entire character is placed on trial. The subject keeps changing because the purpose was never understanding. The purpose was to keep you defending. Excessive engagement rewards that pattern. Every new paragraph becomes another sentence to isolate. Every private detail becomes another fact to reinterpret. Every emotional reaction becomes another doorway through which the conflict can return. More access does not always create more understanding. Sometimes it merely enlarges the battlefield. Therefore, become selective. Answer what is legitimate, decline what is invasive, document what carries real consequences. Disengage from what is circular. If responsibility requires a record, preserve the facts. If repair is possible, participate honestly. If the same accusation returns after sincere answers have been given, stop feeding repetition with fresh energy. This does not mean you become cold. Compassion can recognize that a person may be speaking from fear, pain, immaturity, or confusion. But understanding the source of harmful conduct does not require you to surrender to its effect. You can understand without excusing. You can care without complying. You can remain gentle without remaining available for manipulation. My friend, discernment does not ask only, what are they saying? Discernment asks, what does this conversation consistently produce? Does it produce clarity or confusion? Responsibility or control? Mutual respect or emotional exhaustion? Look beyond the wording, examine the fruit. Guilt will tell you to keep answering. Pressure will tell you that silence proves the accusation. Fear will tell you that one more explanation can save your image. But discernment tells you when truth has been served and when conflict is merely being sustained. Once intention becomes clear, the next act of peace is not another explanation. It is a boundary, a clear decision about what kind of participation will continue and what kind will end. A boundary is not a command over another person. It is a decision about you. It defines what access you will permit, what conduct you will participate in, how your time will be used, and what response you will choose. Control says, you must become what I demand. A boundary says, if this pattern continues, this is how I will respond. That difference is maturity. Begin with proportion, not punishment. Shorten a conversation that has become circular. Refuse to answer an accusation that has already been addressed. Move a sensitive matter into writing when facts are being distorted. Limit access when every interaction becomes an invasion. Create distance when the pattern continues despite clear communication. A wise boundary is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is one calm sentence. I have answered that. Sometimes it says, I will discuss facts, but I will not remain for insults. Sometimes it says, I am ending this conversation now. Sometimes it says, we can revisit this when respect is possible. Then do what you said. A boundary repeatedly announced but never practiced becomes a suggestion. Words identify the limit, but consistency gives the limit structure. If every consequence disappears when guilt arrives, people learn that pressure is the key that unlocks your door. Expect resistance. Some people benefited from your lack of limits. Your availability served them. Your explanations gave them access. Your guilt kept you participating. When you change the pattern, they may call you selfish, difficult, distant, or unkind. Do not let every label become a summons back into defense. But be honest with yourself. Resistance alone does not prove that every boundary is wise. Examine your motive. Is the limit proportionate? Is it clear? Does it protect dignity without seeking revenge? Does it leave room for responsibility, repair, and healthy communication where those remain possible? Boundaries require firmness, but they also require integrity. You establish them not because you hate people, but because you honor peace. Not because you fear truth, but because you refuse confusion. Not because you reject accountability, but because accountability is not endless submission. Not because you want to wound, but because you will no longer cooperate with what wounds you. My friend, healthy boundaries do not always destroy relationships. Often they preserve what disorder would eventually ruin. They prevent resentment from replacing love, exhaustion from replacing generosity, and chaos from replacing honest connection. The relationship that can respect truth may grow stronger. The relationship that requires your self-abandonment has already revealed its condition. Protect peace through clear limits and consistent conduct, not louder defense. Say less, mean it, follow through. But even a well-stated boundary cannot control the story another person chooses to tell. And that leaves one final discomfort. Some people will continue believing the wrong version of you. This is where freedom becomes costly. You may have spoken clearly, acted responsibly, and established a reasonable boundary, yet someone may still repeat a story in which you are selfish, difficult, mistaken, or unkind. They may remove the context, ignore the pattern, and describe your restraint as guilt because your silence serves their conclusion. And you must decide whether you will live your life or spend it chasing their version of you. There is grief in releasing the need to be understood. Do not pretend otherwise. It hurts when sincerity is misread. It hurts when people you valued prefer an accusation to an explanation. It hurts when the story they tell receives more attention than the truth you lived. But acceptance is not agreement. Allowing another person to hold an inaccurate perception does not make that perception true. It means you have stopped sacrificing your peace in a campaign you cannot win. You are not endorsing the false version. You are refusing to make its removal the condition of your freedom. Remember, people interpret through what they know, what they have experienced, what they expect, and what they are willing to see. Their interpretation may reveal their limited information, unresolved pain, personal motives, or present level of awareness. It may describe their lens more accurately than it describes your identity. Release the fantasy of the final perfect speech, the speech so precise that the resistant become fair, the suspicious become trusting, and the committed critic suddenly says, "Now I understand everything." Some minds are not waiting for better words. They are protecting a preferred conclusion. This does not mean falsehood should never be challenged. When safety is threatened, when responsibility demands a record, when work or family obligations require clarity, or when material harm may follow, correct the facts through the proper channel. Be calm. Be specific. Preserve what matters. Seek appropriate support when necessary. But act strategically, not compulsively. Correct the consequence without trying to conquer every opinion. Tell yourself, I can be clear without being believed. I can be responsible without being approved. I can protect what matters without answering every voice. I can remain peaceful while another mind remains unresolved. My friend, truth does not require your anxious supervision every hour of the day. Do what integrity requires, then release what control cannot accomplish. Trust God with what lies beyond your reach. Let surrender end the labor that argument could not finish. Some misunderstandings will remain unfinished. Let them remain unfinished without allowing your character, calling, or peace to remain unfinished with them. And when words have reached their rightful limit, do not leave an empty space. Let the life that follows become the evidence. Image management asks, how can I appear right today? Character formation asks, what must I practice faithfully over time? One is occupied with the verdict of the moment. The other is committed to the direction of a life. When you stop spending energy on endless defense, that energy must be reassigned. Use it to fulfill the responsibilities already in your hands. Use it to repair the mistakes that are genuinely yours. Use it to build meaningful work, cultivate healthy relationships, strengthen emotional discipline, and become more trustworthy in private than you appear in public. Do not merely stop explaining. Start developing. Consistent conduct cannot force everybody to agree with you. Some people will question your motives even when your actions are honorable. Some will interpret restraint as weakness and confidence as pride. But steady character frees you from requiring immediate recognition before you continue doing what is right. Character does not need instant applause to remain faithful. Replace rehearsed arguments with preparation. Replace repeated justification with follow-through. Replace reputation panic with integrity. Replace retaliation with focused progress. The energy you once used to compose another defense can become the energy that completes an assignment, keeps a promise, corrects a weakness, or strengthens a worthy relationship. But be careful. Achievement can become another form of bondage when you use it as revenge. If your secret purpose is to make every critic regret doubting you, then the critic still governs your direction. You may appear successful while remaining emotionally controlled by the audience you claim to have escaped. Build because purpose deserves your discipline, not because resentment demands a performance. My friend, quiet consistency is where truth meets time. A boundary reveals your standard. Conduct reveals your character. Repeated choices reveal your direction. One explanation may be rejected, but a sustained pattern becomes difficult to confuse with an isolated accusation. This does not mean outcomes make you infallible. Results do not erase the need for humility, correction, or repair. It means your life is no longer reduced to one argument, one rumor, or one person's interpretation. You continue learning. You continue serving. You continue becoming. Let your discipline answer what debate could not settle. Let your responsibility carry what image management could never sustain. Let your growth be for your calling, not for the humiliation of your critics. Do not spend the strength required to build your future defending every interpretation of your past. Now the choice stands clearly before you. You can live as a manager of opinions, forever adjusting yourself to the verdicts of others. Or you can live as a steward of peace and purpose, accountable for your character, disciplined in your response, and free to continue forward. You do not have to enter every courtroom constructed inside another person's mind. You do not have to stand before every accusation, answer every suspicion, and appeal every verdict. The exhaustion that once came from managing perception can end when you accept one governing truth. Peace must be governed from within, not negotiated from without. Recognize the impulse to control another person's conclusion. Clarify what responsibility requires. Pause before emotion takes command. Discern whether the listener seeks truth or leverage. Establish boundaries and practice them consistently. Release the perceptions you cannot resolve. Return your energy to the purpose, people, and responsibilities entrusted to you. This is not withdrawal from truth. It is alignment with wisdom. Choose truth over image. Choose responsibility over defensiveness. Choose restraint over reaction. Choose alignment over applause. Choose peace over the endless management of opinion. Explain what is necessary. Correct what is consequential. Apologize for what is yours. Repair what you have damaged. Refuse what is manipulative. End what is circular. Release what you cannot govern. Disciplined silence is not fear. It is speech placed under wisdom. Boundaries are not hatred. They are access placed under principle. Distance is not revenge. It is proximity placed under discernment. Peace is not the reward another person gives you when they finally agree. Peace is the order you maintain when agreement never comes. My friend, let your conduct speak where argument has failed. Let consistency outlast accusation. Let humility keep you teachable and conviction keep you steady. Let purpose reclaim the energy that anxiety once consumed. Let God anchor your identity more deeply than human approval can reach. You may be misunderstood, but you do not have to become unstable. You may be criticized, but you do not have to become defensive. You may be falsely judged, but you do not have to abandon truth, love, accountability, or direction. Stand clear without becoming cruel. Stand firm without becoming proud. Stand peaceful without becoming passive. Your assignment is not to control every story told about you. Your assignment is to live with such integrity that another person's story does not become the author of your life. Being understood is a gift when it comes. Receive it with gratitude. Offer understanding to others with generosity, but never make universal understanding the price of your peace. Speak when truth requires it. Be silent when wisdom commands it. Continue when purpose calls you, and be at peace.